The familiar symphony of humming engines and clinking tools filled the air inside Harper's garage, a modest but deeply respected repair shop nestled in the heart of Willow Creek, a quiet town where everyone knew your name and your business. Benjamin Harper had spent most of his life here, bent over hoods and underneath chassis, mending the mechanical broken dreams of others. His garage wasn't flashy, it wasn't large, and it certainly wasn't cutting edge by modern standards. But it had something that made it stand out against any corporate chain or sleek city shop. It had Ben's mind, a mind that approached every mechanical failure as a puzzle waiting to be solved, a symphony waiting to be retuned. His ingenuity was legendary around these parts. Where others saw rusted hopelessness, Ben saw potential. Where others recommended replacement, Ben found restoration. It was a chilly autumn afternoon when the request that would change his life forever first rolled through his open garage doors. He was deep into the guts of an old Ford pickup, wiping sweat mixed with grease from his forehead when the knock came, soft, hesitant. Ben wiped his hands on a rag tucked into his belt loop and turned toward the entrance. There, framed in the dying golden light of the day, stood a little girl, no more than 10 years old, sitting in a wheelchair. Beside her, a man, presumably her father, shifted his weight awkwardly from one foot to the other, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder. Ben straightened, offering them a nod, his instincts telling him this wasn't a usual oil change inquiry. "Afternoon," he said kindly. "What can I do for you folks?" The man, who introduced himself as Daniel Ward, cleared his throat, his voice tight. "My daughter, Sophia," he said, gesturing toward the girl, "was paralyzed in an accident when she was 5. She's dreamed for years of someday, somehow, driving her own car." He paused, swallowing hard as if the admission itself cost him something. Ben knelt down to be eye level with Sophia, whose bright, hopeful eyes watched him closely. She said nothing at first, but then, gathering courage, she reached into her lap and unfolded a crinkled piece of paper. Carefully, she handed it to Ben. "I tried to draw it," she said, her voice no louder than a whisper. Ben took the paper gingerly and studied the crude but remarkably detailed sketch. It depicted a small car, about the size of a go-kart, but with hand controls instead of foot pedals, modified steering, and a seat that allowed easy transfer from a wheelchair. He looked back at Sophia, then at Daniel, then at the paper again, feeling something stir in his chest. "You want me to build this?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. Sophia nodded, clutching the arms of her chair. Ben tapped the paper thoughtfully. "It's not crazy, kid," he said with a small smile. "It's possible." Sophia's face lit up like Christmas morning. Daniel's mouth opened in shock, disbelief warring with hope. "You serious?" he stammered. Ben chuckled. "Give me a few weeks. I'll see what I can do." And with that simple promise, a journey began. The following weeks consumed Ben like nothing had in years. Every spare hour, every ounce of his creativity was poured into the project. By day, he fixed the usual parade of sputtering engines and faulty brakes. By night, he worked feverishly in the back of the garage, transforming Sophia's drawing into reality. He welded a lightweight aluminum frame, sourced specially crafted wheels, rigged an entirely hand-controlled system for acceleration and braking, and devised a seat that could be adjusted and locked safely with minimal effort. He tested and retested, tweaked and perfected, determined that Sophia's first ride would not only be functional, but magical. The first time Sophia and Daniel returned to the garage, the vehicle was covered by a large tarp. Ben couldn't help but feel a flutter of nervous energy as he stood beside it. "Ready?" he asked. Sophia nodded eagerly, her hands gripping her chair's arms tightly. Ben whipped the tarp away with a flourish. There it was, her dream made real. A sleek, gleaming minicar, painted sky blue with a silver lightning bolt down each side. Sophia gasped audibly, covering her mouth with both hands. Daniel simply stared, his eyes filling with tears he made no attempt to hide. Ben knelt beside Sophia's chair. "You ready to take it for a spin?" he asked. Her hands trembled slightly as she maneuvered toward the car. Ben helped her transfer into the custom seat. She gripped the hand controls, experimenting cautiously. When she pressed forward, the little car responded smoothly, rolling out into the lot with a gentle, controlled movement. Sophia's laughter, pure, uninhibited, radiant, filled the air, sending a jolt of pure joy straight to Ben's heart. For Sophia, it wasn't just a ride. It was freedom, independence, a small piece of the world that was truly hers. For Ben, it was a reminder of why he had fallen in love with machines in the first place. Not for the power, but for the potential. What Ben couldn't have known was that sometimes a small act of kindness sends out ripples bigger than anyone could imagine. 3 weeks after Sophia's first drive, on an otherwise ordinary Thursday morning, a black limousine pulled up to Harper's garage. Ben wiped his hands on his rag, warily eyeing the sleek, polished vehicle that clearly didn't belong in a dusty mechanic's lot. The driver opened the door, and a man emerged, tall, sharply dressed in a bespoke suit, his shoes polished to a mirror shine. "Mr. Harper?" the man asked, offering his hand. Ben shook it, feeling the strength and certainty behind the grip. "My name is Alexander Hayes. I represent Valor Automotive." Ben raised an eyebrow. Valor Automotive was a name he knew well, one of the giants of innovation in the auto industry. Hayes smiled warmly. "We've heard about what you built for Sophia Ward." Ben stiffened slightly. "Word travels fast." "Indeed it does," Hayes said, "especially when it's something the world needs." From the breast pocket of his suit, Hayes withdrew an envelope and handed it to Ben. Ben opened it cautiously, pulling out a series of official-looking documents. As he read, his heart began to pound. Valor Automotive was offering him a partnership, full funding to develop a line of affordable, adaptive vehicles for disabled children. A state-of-the-art facility would be built bearing his name, the Harper Mobility Innovation Center. Ben looked up, dazed. "You want me to leave Willow Creek?" "No," Hayes said simply. "We want Willow Creek to become the epicenter of something bigger. You stay. You build. We'll help." Ben thought of the garage, his second home. He thought of Sophia's laughter, still ringing fresh in his ears. And he knew the answer. Months later, the grand opening of the Harper Mobility Innovation Center was a global event. Reporters, advocates, and families from all corners of the country gathered to witness the beginning of a new era. Sophia Ward, wearing a navy blue jacket and a beaming smile, cut the ribbon herself, rolling down the smooth concrete track in her custom minicar, the very first creation of what would soon be an entire fleet. Ben Harper stood beside her, his heart full, as cameras flashed and applause echoed. Sometimes, the smallest spark, a knock at the garage door, a crumpled drawing from a child's hand, was all it took to ignite a revolution. And Ben Harper, the small-town mechanic with big ideas, had just begun.